Good afternoon, everyone. I will be discussing Module 5, which refers to the Eastern and Western perspectives when it comes to developing or understanding the self. In the first 4 chapters of this course, you were already given a definition of the Western perspective. Most of the theories and thoughts that were discussed in the first 4 chapters were purely Western. Okay? So, as you can recall, the development of the self based on the Western perspective is individualized. We focus on the values and factors that help develop the self, which came from the internal sources. Now, the Eastern perspective is different because in the Eastern perspective, we look at the development of the self through our function in the society and our relationship with other people. Okay? But before that, why do we need to see the difference between the Eastern and Western perspective? That is because the Philippines had been colonized by different countries for several years. We've been a colony of Spain for more than 300 years, followed by the Americans, the Japanese, and now it is still happening. We are still being colonized passively, okay, by other Asian countries, specifically China and Korea. Okay? So it means that the development of ourself is not purely Filipino or Eastern. It is also affected by the Western culture and by other countries. Okay, now, as you can see, in the first philosophy that was discussed in your lecture, you have there the philosophy based on Confucius, okay, or Confucianism. According to Confucius, a self-cultivated man or a well-developed person comes about when he or she is already a chunsu or gentleman. For you to become a gentleman, you have to follow several principles, okay, or live by several rules. For example, the principle of Li, okay, meaning you need to develop self-restraint or a sense of propriety, or you need to know how to control your emotions towards other people so that you will not have an outburst, you will not get mad at any point in your life without a heavy reason. Another principle is the principle of sin, okay? The principle of sin or the principle of honesty in life also pertains to your relationship with other people. You have to be honest to others in order to become a gentleman. Okay, now based on this, you will see that for us to become a gentleman, we have to properly relate with other people or use or follow and develop specific values. Okay, next to Confucius is Taoism, which was based on the life of Lao Tzu. According to the philosophy of Taoism, there is a specific way, path, or principle that we also need to follow in order to become fully functioning human beings or to become complete. Okay, and there is a specific hierarchy that needs to be followed when it comes to nature and the society. Okay, it was said that there is no distinction of an I or you or others because we coexist. Okay, and for us to coexist properly, we need to learn how to give and take. We need to learn the ways of nature. If we take away something from nature, we have to give something back. Okay? In science, it was said that we are on top of the hierarchy as human beings. We need to protect, okay, those in the lower hierarchy. But according to Taoism, we are of equal rank, okay, to those elements in life. Because we cannot live alone. We depend on nature and on other people in order to survive. So, if we want to survive, we need to help them survive as well. Okay, now next one is the philosophy of Buddhism. Okay, it states there that there is no self, there is no permanent self. There's only seconds or a specific period of short time where we exist as a specific entity and then it is gone. The concept of an experience, sabi dyan, it is short-lived. Okay? It changes every time. There are many things that could change who we are, the way we behave, the way we think. And therefore, we cannot establish a specific sense of self. We cannot say that I am like this, you are like that, because it could change at any moment. And all of it depends on the way we relate to other people. Okay, in Buddhism, there are skandhas or 5 aggregates of existence. First is form, that's your physical body. It changes over time. Okay, When you were an infant, you were smaller, and then you grow bigger and bigger, and when you reach a specific age, your physical abilities and your physical appearance tend to decline. So it doesn't stay the same way. Second is sensation. Feelings and sensation change depending on the situation. Okay, you are not happy all the time, or you are not sad all the time. It changes. Third is perception, okay, or the way we think. It is not the same thing. Your perception of the reason why it rains is different from when you were a child to that of right now when you are already adults. Third is mental formation. Our habits, the procedures, the behavior that we do, it is affected by different factors around us. And then consciousness. We are not always aware or sensitive about the things that are happening around us. It also changes. So the experience of the self, it changes all the time depending on the elements in our environment. So again, Eastern perspective, okay? The self is affected, or the self develops depending on our relationship with the world, with the society where we live in. Okay? Now, other comparisons of the Eastern and Western perspective was enumerated on a table in your lecture. So it is easily discussed by comparing individualism versus collectivism. Easterners are collectivists. Okay? We focus on our relationship with other people. What other people are saying about us, it affects us a lot. In the Western culture, the difference is that they are individualistic. Okay? They do not focus on what other people would say or think. They focus on themselves. Their values are personal and unique. Okay? Sometimes we think of them as selfish, but it's not the case. It's just that they tend to focus on themselves. Whereas us as Easterners, we focus on the whole humanity. Our goal is always to protect everyone, or to focus on what would be good for everybody. And then they focus on personal goals no matter what. That's why in other schools, they can set their own schedules, they can take their own subjects, whatever subject they want to take. Here in the Philippines, we like to set uh, school subjects which are dependent on how our friends would take the subject. Okay, that's why we set up your sections as block sections, because we are more comfortable with seeing the same kind of people day in and day out. Okay? And then they value individual achievements. Here, we value group achievements. If someone performs better than the group, we treat them as outcasts, or in Filipino term, we call them maepal, or nagmamagaling. Okay? Because we think that they are leaving the whole group behind. We want to feel like everybody should belong, or everybody should go up the ladder if one is about to go up. That's why in the Philippines, we have what we call the crab mentality. Okay? Crabs, when they see another crab climbing out of the basket, they would pull that crab down. So all of them tend to stay down. No one is able to escape. Okay? Next, in the Western culture, they attribute success into personal abilities. Okay? Here in the Eastern world, we tend to think na mayabang. Okay? Yung mga tao na nagre-refer sa success as their own success. So we always attribute it to the group. Okay? When an event is successful, we tend to think to thank the whole class or the whole community, when in reality only one person worked very hard in order to make the project successful. Okay, for us, it's not okay to only thank someone or to only recognize one person. We need to recognize the group. And then the relationship in Eastern culture focuses on personal goals. That's why it's okay for most people who live in the Eastern world to develop what we call long-distance relationships. It exists for them because their goals in life, their careers, comes first before the relationship. Okay? And for them, if you really love one person, you need to support their career growth. So it's okay for them to go separate ways. For us in the Eastern culture, it's different. We emphasize the bond that exists between two people who are together. Okay? So it's common for Eastern workers to ask for family status when it comes to working abroad. They want to bring their family with them. And then, in the Western culture, they focus on equity. In the Eastern culture, we focus on equality. How are the two concepts different? When we talk about equity, we give someone what that person needs. Okay? So if you need more than your classmates, I will give you more. Okay? Because that's what you need. That is equity. Equality means giving everyone the same amount. Okay? So inside the classroom, if one of your classmates would ask me to give him or her 5 minutes to answer a specific task, I would give everyone 5 minutes to answer a specific task. That is equality. So it's tricky to differentiate between the two or to decide which is better because of our values. Okay? Because we are used to equality, not equity. And then another difference is when it comes to expressing things. Okay? When accepting criticisms, it's all right for the Westerners to accept criticisms from other people. They always see it as a challenge or as a way to enhance their skills or to grow. For us, the Easterners, we are afraid to criticize other people because we would think about how they would feel. Not if it would help them, but what it would make them feel. Natatakot tayo na sabihin sa ibang tao ano yung mali nila. Okay? In the Western world, that is not the case. If something is wrong, you need to call it or you have to mention it to help that person grow. And then, self-affirmation versus group affirmation. In the Western world, they focus on understanding the individual. Okay? Understanding the individual, understanding the self, yung I value. For the Western world or the Eastern world, we focus on group affirmation. What role am I playing in my family? Okay? That's why when I ask you to introduce who you are, most of you would say, I am the first daughter or I am the third son of. Okay? That's always included into your introduction. But that is not part of the real self. It's part of your autobiography because that's your family role. But when I ask you who you are, you need to be able to define who you are, what you want in life, what are your career goals, how do you think, how do you feel, how do you behave. Those are I affirmations, me, the self, instead of who am I to the society. So those are the main differences between the Eastern and Western perspective. Now, we are heavily influenced by the Eastern perspective because we live in the Eastern world. Okay? But slowly, since we are being educated in a global-minded perspective, we are also showing characteristics or traits that define us or tell us that parts of ourselves is westernized. We are influenced by the Western country. Now, if you balance the Eastern and Western perspective and you check out which characteristics came from the Eastern and Western world, you would be able to understand more about yourself, who you are as a person, what you prefer, what you like, or what you do not like. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask your instructors about explaining this lecture again. Thank you.